What does it really mean for a movie to hold up a mirror to society?
Isn't that an extinction level event?
Well, let's not be dramatic here.
Oh gosh. What's up everybody, this is Major coming at you with another kind of cool video. Time for playing is over. It's been over, but it's really over.
Do we all know what we've got ourselves into?
Welcome to the Great Reset, or what I like to call the Great Re-Shit. That's where they take some old shit, dust it off, and repurpose it as new shit.
Do we know where we're likely to be going? And who is going to lead us?
You probably have quite a few opinions about what's going on in the news cycle right now. But it's important to remember one thing. You're wrong. Here's why.
It's called brainwashing.
I think we will see a kind of semi-neutral bloc, which will be led by India, which will endeavour very successfully, I would guess, to play off those two bitter rivals, us, Anglo-Europa, and them, Russia-China. It's perfect for them. India always wanted to be the leader of a third world.
I want to conduct a little thought experiment. We often hear that fatal phrase, to reflect the community we serve these days, and it invariably means that efforts are being made to reduce the number of white people.
And we need now to start planning consciously that we will be in a world which will not be any longer globalised. We're in a world in which there will not even be lip service to universal values. We'll be in a world in which there will be different vast power blocks with different approaches, with different values. There will be some that will call themselves liberal democratic, and there will be more that emphatically are not, that are various forms of more or less benign or more or less malevolent totalitarianism. And there will be those in the middle, I've called it Indo-Asia, that will play, well, a middle game. The tertius gaudens, the happy three, playing the other two off.
Oddly enough, we never hear the expression being used in connection with sport. What do viewers think would happen if I was running a football team and decided that it did not reflect the community which it served?
Which of course raises very interesting questions.
For example, it should have no more than one black person, and at least one person from the Indian subcontinent. Many football teams have more than one black player, and most have not got a single Asian, which is grossly unfair and discriminatory because there are in this country far more people of South Asian heritage than there are black people. So I will get rid of all but one of the black players and replace them with white people and a Bangladeshi.
But isn't it likely to throw that tension in one direction and one direction only back in the rest of the world with profound hostility and determination to have its revenge? So I'm not sure we're actually thinking through very clearly what the consequences of what we're doing are.
Does anybody think that this would make the football team better? And if so, in what sense? Of course, allocating places on the football team in this way, according to skin colour and family background, would be an idiotic idea. What you really want is the people who are best able to play football.
But there's another much bigger thought in my mind.
Because in general, black people are not keen on classical music, opera and ballet. English touring opera is committed to increasing all kinds of diversity in its team, and while there have been appreciable steady advances on stage in this area, we have prioritised increased diversity in the orchestra. This is in line with the firm guidance of the Arts Council, principal funder of ETO's touring work, and of most of the trust funds that support ETO. This is precisely comparable with our ridiculous instance of a football team sacking players because too many were black and not enough were Asian. There's no suggestion that the English touring orchestra, the opera people, had been discriminating against black musicians. It is simply that hardly any applied for jobs with them.
in order to convince the masses to agree to their own demise. So be prepared to hear about all the sacrifices you're gonna have to make in order to save the planet. Sacrifices like giving up your property rights, being forced into smart cities, and being injected with nanotechnology so they can track you down for thought crimes.
I've just reiterated what, and it was very, very much like COVID. No journalist there actually challenged the fundamental assumptions. Instead, they were simply saying more, faster, faster. Do you remember going back to COVID? No journalists, virtually no journalists, and only a handful of commentators, of whom I was one, bothered to say, is lockdown, is this Chinese solution to what is actually a rather minor virus the sensible thing to do? Well, similarly, nobody was challenging these people when they said, oh, we've got to vindicate the...
It's simply not a black thing. The London Symphony Orchestra puts on free concerts in Trafalgar Square that anybody can come and listen to. Most of the audience are white, with some Chinese people and a few Indians. There is not a single black person to be seen in the audience.
And this is how we've got to do it. Everybody was just saying more.
By and large, black people prefer to do other things than play classical music. It is the same reason one sees very few Indians in football teams, because they prefer to do other things. Any attempt to force diversity, whether on a football team or orchestra, must result in a decline in quality, because football teams and orchestras want the best footballers and musicians. If they are forced to choose people based on skin colour, then they will no longer be selecting the best, and their team or orchestra will not be as good as the one which is choosing people based upon talent.
And so I thought it was totalitarian regimes,
such as banking, law, and any profession you care to mention. In each case, the result is going to be the same. It's going to mean a lowering of quality. This awful process is happening in many fields apart from orchestras, and in every single case, the result will be the same: a lowering of quality. It could not be otherwise.
Mentally, they're exercising you, whether you believe it or not. They're using all types of programmable exercises at us at all times. It's called brainwashing.
What? Is that the basis for confiscation? So again, all these sort of uncomfortable things, and a press that's just egging them on. But there's a bigger question, isn't there?
I know. Where are my accolades?
Sam, you get plenty of accolades.
I swear to God, if there really is a tunnel under the Getty, I give up.
There is an entire
We'll go digging, Maggie.
Devoted to Sam.
And during the World Economic Forum's Great Narrative Conference, one of the speakers talked about how the good news is that the elite all across the world trust each other, and that the bad news is that the majority of the people don't trust the elite.
The good news is the elite across the world trust each other more and more. The bad news is that in every single country they were polling, the majority of people trusted that elite less.
My friend Tyler Carden, he tweeted, the good news here is actually the bad news, and the bad news is the good news.
Yeah. For real.
Like, oh, these plebs aren't listening to us? What is going on?
Are we really right when we claim to speak for the world, this world-based system, this rules-based system of international relations? Is it really the world? Does the world have one voice? Is that voice the voice of Justin Trudeau? Is the world fundamentally democratic, in agreement on a rules-based system of international relations, passionately and universally committed to human rights?
Please understand from our yacht that we don't understand why these plebs aren't more cooperative with our collective desires for their well-being. It's so insane that people say this stuff out loud.
They should really just go take a kickboxing class and have a margarita.
Why aren't these plebs just, drinking and kickboxing their way to to some kind of happiness in their life.
I don't understand it.
Don't they know that we know what's best for them? While we dine on steak and fly in private jets, they will be eating bugs and living in pods and owning nothing and being happy. This is what's best for everyone, particularly us, the elites.
Is it? Is it because there was the most enormous elephant in the room?
I don't see what's so confusing here. Why are they so angry, Klaus? I don't understand.
Niemand und bringt endlich die Rede zu Arafat. Und als die Redezeit von Shimon Peres abgelaufen war,
the most enormous elephant in the room.
Abgelaufen war. Now names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
Oh wow, Putin. That didn't age well. But the list goes on.
But what we are very proud of now, the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau.
The press conference was interminable. But one thing was never mentioned. China.
And I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
Wait, Justin Trudeau was a young global leader?
Isn't this astonishingly to misunderstand? So let's actually go back and do a little bit of history. Trudeau actually gave us some history, not bad history actually. He said this system of rules-based international order went back to 1945. That's the end of the Second World War, the setting up of the United Nations and its various agencies, the Declaration of International Human Rights, which is drafted by that figure of towering significance, Eleanor Roosevelt, and so on.
I don't have too many remedies.
Oprah gave everyone a car. We want to give everyone a yacht.
We will see definitively a lot of anger already now, but probably increased by the end of the year.
It's so bad.
Good thing.
We're going to see a revolution. I just don't know, how it's going to turn out. It
How
never
it's
turns
gonna
out
play
well
out.
for the plebs.
It'll
No,
be
it
the
does not.
elites escaping on their yachts because they're not
And all
taxed
going
now.
to New Zealand.
Not if we have a yacht. We'll take every pleb we can.
Donate to fetisy.com so we can get a yacht. And
We
help
will get
us
an army of yachts. For the
rise up
plebs.
to defeat
army of
the
yachts.
elites.
A yacht for everyone. That's what we want.
The media and the deep state is corrupt to the core. The America that we know and love doesn't exist anymore. The middle class has been displaced by an unending wave of illegals.
Never has anybody been more appropriately named. Francis Fukuyama's essay called The End of History, which claimed that what was going to happen was the triumph of the universal liberal state. That's to say, we were all going to become the same. There was going to be an absolute agreement on values. The only thing that remained to be decided was how on earth there's going to be no more war. The only thing that remained to be decided was how to grow the economy. And the natural end point of human development was the European Union.
The Fourth Industrial Revolution, the Great Reset, and the Great Narrative. And of course, you will own nothing and be happy. And I'm sure you've seen the face of this guy being praised as a visionary who will guide our world into a prosperous future.
As we all know and should really recognise, is the most extraordinary charade, as we saw with COVID. WHO, the World Health Organization, is in the pocket of China. The human rights agencies of the United Nations are run by places like Saudi Arabia. UNESCO, whoever's heard of UNESCO in recent years, again, the cultural agency of the United Nations is run by countries without culture. There's an absurdity about the whole thing. This vast apparatus in New York and Geneva is simply a sewer down which we throw money. But leaving that aside, But that's a moment of the hubris, the hubristic arrogance of the international, the rules-based international order, sketched out in 1945, but of course profoundly interrupted by the Cold War, but with the collapse of the other side in the Cold War 40-odd years later, apparently vindicated and apparently triumphant. Of course, there have been those little dents, haven't there, of 9/11, Iraq, Afghanistan, and now this.
Check this out. Regardless of their circumstances, CBDC should be usable by all Canadians, even by those without a bank account or access to a cellular phone. What sort of technology could allow you to access digital currency without a cell phone? Could it be a microchip?
Ideas are what power our economy. We do innovation better than anybody else. And that makes our economy stronger.
We had many interactions with the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy.
They found that great science project in the BRAIN Initiative, a research megaproject that Obama announced in 2013 with the goal of unveiling the mysteries of the brain.
And to the perception that we can really do it, that this is doable, that we can actually end up being able to record the activity of every nerve in a brain and decipher it, and this could really revolutionize neuroscience, just like the Human Genome Project revolutionized genetics.
Very soon after the launching of the BRAIN Initiative, the European Union announced its own megaproject, the Human Brain Project. The development of all these projects could change the scenario of brain research and lead humanity to unprecedented advances.
So this is very exciting. This is just happening. And I hope that this will provide the ability to generate knowledge and send this knowledge throughout the world and to different countries in a way in which no one is left behind. And we're all part of the same exciting moment in history.
We've started the path to a new world in which a deeper knowledge of the brain will radically transform our human condition. Brain-machine communication will grow progressively more efficient and precise, and will open up a vast range of possibilities for human beings to benefit from the potential offered to us by artificial intelligence.
So let us discuss and how it might affect our lives. Pillar 1, surveillance. The first pillar in the 2030 agenda is the possibility of total surveillance of every single one of us. And the way the WEF could achieve this is by us requiring a new form of identification. The World Economic Forum suggests that every single person on the planet will receive a new form of digital ID, which they say would help promote a world of inclusion where everyone has more access to basic services. But they also suggest this ID could be linked to absolutely everything in your life. It could be required to book plane and train tickets and track where it is you're going. This digital ID would be needed to access social media, the internet, bank accounts, and even a requirement in order to spend your money. And without your ID, it's possible you may not be able to buy anything at all. And who would control your digital ID and the data it contains? Well, of course, your government would.
So 20% of the world only is, frankly, really part of all of this.
And even though statistics show that many countries around the world would prefer to use cash over electronic forms of money, the WEF believes these people just don't know what's good for them. Instead, they believe we should all be switching over to electronic payment systems as it's the way of the future. The WEF is an organization that none of us have elected. an organization that is funded by some of the richest and most powerful companies that have ever existed. It's an organization that is installing its young global leaders in political cabinets all around the world to shape the laws of our nations. And seemingly, it's an organization that thinks it knows better than we do about the individual choices we should all be making. Personally, I want to live in a world where I get to make my own choices, that I get to decide what I want to do and what I enjoy, and not having some government or algorithm deciding this for me.
Now, why anyone in their right mind would think it's a good idea to give the very elitists who destroyed the planet more power to now save the planet is beyond me, but hey, we're talking about the same species who eats Tide Pods and thinks polyester can protect you from a virus.
Are we really right that we say we're reducing Russia to a pariah?
The entire world is losing its mind, but nevertheless, it does feel like something is ending, like we're awakening from a dream, and in that sense, about our future as it is about our past, about the closing of a chapter, one where, for a while,
We really did have everything, didn't we?
To start, you're completely missing the point, and everything you think is actually at odds with reality when you look at the data.
And boy has it ruffled some feathers to dive into a complex societal issue.